Hi friends, it is Julie. Welcome back to Pages and Pens. Today I am here with a very fun, collaborative, original tag for you. It is the Schitt's Creek book tag. Let's jump right into it. Today I am very excited to bring to you, a week before the finale of Schitt's Creek, the Schitt's Creek book tag. I am obsessed with this show. It is absolutely phenomenal, and I had this brainchild idea for a tag that was all centered around Schitt's Creek and just a show that I love and adore. And so the first thing that came to mind was the other person that I know who's as obsessed with it as I am, and that is Aimee from Aimee Reads. So I reached out to Aimee and asked if she would like to co-do this tag with me, and we had an amazing Google Hangout and went over all of the prompts and the questions, and we were able to come up with stuff that we were really happy with, that we think really speaks to the characters. If you do not know, Schitt's Creek is an amazing show. It's absolutely hilarious. It is over the top. It follows a family after their fall, their financial ruin, when the only thing they have left, the only asset they have left, is a town that the father bought the son as a gag gift called Schitt's Creek, because he was up Schitt's Creek. And it follows their emotional journeys as they transition through years of just living without money in a new life and making the most of things. And it is one of the smartest written shows. It is so genuinely funny. I laugh out loud every single time. I get emotional, like I care about these characters so much, and it is ending and it hurts my heart, but I'm so glad to have gone on this journey with these characters. It is so much fun. So if you are into Schitt's Creek, if you enjoy the show, or even if you don't, you just want to answer some bookish questions, then I hope you will consider joining Aimee and myself to do this tag. Because it is not necessarily niche, I think anybody can do this. I'm just going to tag everyone in general. We would love to see what you do with this. It's just that I don't know who has and who has not watched the show. I hope you will give it a shot. If you have not yet, please do. I believe the first number of seasons are on Netflix, and then the current season is still ongoing. Like I said, we're coming up on a week until the finale, and my heart is not ready for it, but I am very excited to see what happens to my babies. Welcome to the Schitt's Creek book tag. 12 questions for you, and again, everybody is tagged. First up, we're going to go over some of the characters. We have our father of the group, the leader, the ever positive and patient Johnny Rose. For this one, we want to know a story with an uplifting or positive message. This is difficult for me because I don't read a ton of books that are incredibly uplifting and positive and leave you feeling happy. Most of the books that I read leave me feeling relatively broken, but there was one that kind of came to mind that I read very recently. I think a lot of you probably already have. The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry. This is about a man who has lost the love of his life, who has a very troubled past, but who is trying to remain open to what life has in store for him. And the journey that he goes on is very tough. I mean, he's making the best of a bad situation, but he is ever funny about it and ever real with his situation and what he is in for. The way that he relates to the characters around him is so heartwarming. And I think overall it is a story about hope and about second chances. And I think that that's a lot of what Schitt's Creek and Johnny Rose actually stand for. So for me, The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry was a standout. I can't believe I waited this long to read it. I was emotionally broken and crying, but I do think that the journey the character takes in this isn't too far off from Johnny's, and I do think that it is overall one of hope and inspiration and second chances and never kind of giving up. So it gets dark, but it's also very beautiful, and I loved it a whole lot. So for some reason you have not read this one yet, I'm pretty sure I'm the last person to read it, but if you haven't, give it a try. It's really good. Then we have Moira Rose, who is 100% over the top. She's a lot to take in, and oh my goodness, does her family have immense patience with her. She is very much the center of her own universe. For this one, we have an over-the-top character that you can't help but love. I mean, is it really one of my book tags or one of my videos without mentioning the Hollow series by Kim Harrison? I think that we have one of the most over-the-top, lovable, compassionate characters in Jenks. He is one of the main trio of this, being Rachel and Ivy and Jenks. He is the smallest of the business partners, being a fairy. He's so amazing and so compassionate. There's nothing that he won't do, but he is very over the top. He is very, very extra and very melodramatic, and I love him for it. Really, really enjoy him. Also, as a side character that I think is pretty dramatic and over the top and doesn't shy away from reminding you exactly who they are and what they're capable of, would be Silas from The Sorcery of Thorns, or A Sorcery of Thorns, or just Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. Silas is a side character, but I do think that he really takes center stage in a lot of this book. He's my favorite character in this novel. He is a demon companion to Nathaniel, who is a sorcerer, and he never apologizes for exactly who he is, and he never tries to be anything that he isn't. Even if he appears to be at certain times, he is very forthcoming in reminding you he is a demon, he is not the good guy. I appreciate that about him because, like Moira, he's very unapologetically himself, and he's a standout character from this novel. Then we have David Rose, and David Rose, I think out of everybody on the show, definitely has the most distinct fashion sense. He knows exactly what his look is, and he does not waver from it. And when he is kind of honing in on the things that he wants to do and the things that he wants to see in his life, he has a very clear aesthetic. So for this one, we want to know a book cover that matches your aesthetic, or that is very aesthetically pleasing to you. Again, because I don't like being held down to just one thing. I love blues and I love feathers. For me, this is just a gorgeous book. It's very simple, but it is a standout. This is The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender by Leslie Walton. It's one of my favorite books. It's very dark, but it does have this really beautiful, aesthetically pleasing cover for me. Like, this is one of my favorite covers of all time. I think I mention it anytime we talk about really pretty covers. And similarly, I think I usually mention The Secret Garden. This is one of my favorites, again, because I love this color. Like, the blues really, really speak to me. We have a bird on here. I'm obsessed with birds, and skeleton keys, which I'm also obsessed with. This old, like, filigree gate. It's just, like, to me, everything about this book screams, like, me. It's got that old worldy feel with like a new upgrade that's like very gilded and shiny, but still speaks to something that's maybe a little older, like me. Then we have Alexis Rose, and for Alexis, we could only do somebody who had a superior character arc and or character growth. If you've stuck with Schitt's Creek, you can tell that Alexis really truly grows a lot through the seasons. I just couldn't give it to anybody else but Ewww from A Man Called Ewww by Frederick Bachman. This one is one that I just recently read as well, and I don't know that I have seen quite a transition and quite an arc, albeit a very reluctant arc, than I did with Ewww. We have a man who's very curmudgeon-y. His wife has died. He has nothing left to live for. He doesn't want to be around. He doesn't want to care about people. But then inch by inch, people kind of force their way in, past his barriers, make him care. And he is one of the most heartwarming and endearing characters that I've read about in a very long time, despite the fact that he is so ornery and stubborn and stuck in his ways, and change for him is not easy, but it is beautiful. And I loved his growth, and I loved his arc, and I like that he could find a little bit of redemption despite not really losing himself or acting out of character. I thought that that was handled really, really well, because his growth was very organic and very natural and very believable. Just because he starts to let people in doesn't mean he fully lets go of who he is. And I think that the same can be said for Alexis. So this one really got to me. Then we have Stevie Budd, and Stevie is like the sidekick to the gang. For her, we wanted to talk about our favorite friend group or friend dynamic. I have a couple. I don't think either one of them are going to be a surprise to you. First of all, we have This Adventure Ends. This is by far one of my favorite friend groups, and eclectic, and it's not perfect, and they fight and they argue, but they also make up in very realistic and reliable ways. I think that they make sense. They hurt one another's feelings, but they stand up to one another and they let them know when somebody has gone too far, and they forgive one another, and it is just very beautiful and very wholesome. And at the heart of it all is just kids that want the best for one another and want to see one another happy, and that always warms my heart. So I love this friend group so much. On a much darker scale, but nonetheless very heartwarming, is The Way to the Stars. This friend group is very troubled. None of these kids have come from easy backgrounds. They all have a lot of trauma and a lot of issues in their past, and they're all pretty broken. And together they don't necessarily make each other whole, but they do make each other better, and they do understand one another, and they push one another. These kids are gonna be there for one another regardless of the circumstances. Again, just one of my favorite found families, one of my favorite friend groups. I think that it's beautiful. The same could probably be said for like the Wayfarer series by Becky Chambers, especially The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. Then we have Ted Mullens, and Ted is our town hunky veterinarian. So for this one, we want to know your favorite book with an animal on the cover. And again, because I'm a cheetah, I have two. See what I did there? Not cheater, cheetah. Animal. So first up, we have Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, and down here we do have a little kitty cat. The kitty cat does also play very heavily into the story, so this one counts. This one is one of my favorite contemporary romances. It is very steamy, but it also has great representation, and it's just one of my favorite romance reads from last year. Really loved it, and I can't wait to read the follow-up, which is Take a Hint, Danny Brown, which I do have an arc of, so I want to get to that one soon, but this one, definite standout. And then on the other end of the spectrum, very dark but very impactful, is The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. Didn't feel right to do a tag like this without mentioning Mindy McGinnis because I do love her writing so much, and I think at this point I'm caught up with all of her books. But we do have a whole lot of animals on this one. So this one is a contender for my favorite book with animals on it. And again, guys, the fact that these are all like tabbed up and loved makes my heart so happy. If you don't annotate your books, I'd love to know why. I don't even write in all of them anymore. I just like put tabs in them. I suggest giving it a try, just once. Like vlog yourself trying to annotate a book. Trust me, it takes a little bit longer to get through, but it makes you think a little bit more. I love it. It makes me very happy. All right, last up for our character questions is Patrick Brewer, and for this one we want to know your favorite love interest in a book. I have a really hard time with this. I don't typically get swoony over characters, so I just picked a couple where I knew that the romances and the characters were really heartwarming and heartfelt and I connected with. So first up, I'm going to pick Strange Grace by Tessa Gratton. This does have like a polyamorous relationship, like a throuple relationship in this, and it is one of my favorites. I think that together, all of the characters really work. Any two of them alone don't really round out as well as all three of them together do. I really like it. The characters are not perfect. They are not flawless. They, definitely have their issues, but I think together the relationship really works, and I think it's just so pure and beautiful, and it makes my heart so happy. So I'm going to say Strange Grace. But then also I want to throw out an honorable mention because I truly do believe that Jen Bennett does fantastic with her love interests. I think that all of her male love interests in these stories are just as complex and flawed and strong as her female leads. I'm just throwing out a Jen Bennett here. If you're interested in very sex-positive, diverse contemporaries, I think Jen Bennett does my favorite YA contemporaries. I never feel like they're too tropey or overdone. I believe the interactions between the two, I guess is what I should say. I'm not attracted to teenagers, but I believe the love that she builds between her characters, which I think is important. Next up, we have community service. I don't want to spoil the show, so I won't mention how community service plays into the show, but it does play in earlier in the storylines. I don't know if it's season 1 or season 2, but we do have some community service that's mandated. And so for this one, I want to know what book you had to read either for school or a buddy read or potentially a prompt for a readathon. So something that you were kind of assigned to read. Either somebody chose a buddy read book or a book club book that you really were not excited about, did not have high expectations for, but then really surprised you. For me, this is going to be one that was picked by my Patreon supporters, and that's going to be An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. Or is it An Absolutely Unremarkable Thing? I can never remember. I don't have it. I've sent it along, and then since then I'm pretty sure it got lost. But I did not have high hopes for this. It was sci-fi. It was not something that was really on my radar. I did not expect to love it. And I actually really did. So kudos. I cannot wait for the second book. I will be getting it. I will be reading it. I read it thinking, it'll be okay. I'll get through it. But I'm just reading it really because I want to say thank you to my Patreon supporters. Really didn't have any expectations for it. Kind of really glad that I read it in the end. So aces to that one. Then we have Ewww David.
Oh my god, Ewww David.
And that's a book that you had to DNF because the content was just not something that you wanted to read. And for me, that is going to absolutely be Never Contented Things. I don't remember the author's name. I had an e-arc of it on NetGalley and I had to DNF it. It was a fae story that I thought I could really get down with, and then there were foster siblings that started to have like weird romantic interactions with one another, and the older sibling was being seduced by the younger sibling, who like straight up wanted to have a sexual relationship with them even though they didn't want to do it, and it felt real gross. So yeah, I DNF'd that one. I'm not sorry about it. Then we have another Alexis quote, and that is, "Love that journey for me."
Yes, love that journey for me.
And this one is going to be your favorite series ender and or your favorite overall progression in a series. So a series that actually like went where you wanted it to go. It had good journey. You had a good journey through it. I have two Strange the Dreamer series by Laini Taylor, Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares. These are gorgeous books. I really did love the way that this developed characters throughout the story, the way that it wove, the way that we got like a full picture of this world and these characters and the myth and the lore. I thought it was done very, very well. Love her writing style. And I do think that she writes very good character and story arcs. So a continuation of that Love That Journey for me is the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. Again, another Laini Taylor. I just really love her writing. I think that her characters progress really well through this series. You learn a lot about them. You learn a lot about the world and the character growth. And there's a natural like ebb and flow and movement to her stories that just makes sense and leave me feeling pretty satisfied overall. So Laini Taylor, I think, has a really good way of structuring her stories so that you never feel like you're being gypped. I like the way that they merge. Then we have Eat Glass.
Eat glass.
And for this one, we're gonna go with a series and or author that you are breaking up with. You're mad about it. You would like them to eat glass. For me, it's going to be Casey West and Morgan Matson. I have read multiple books by both of these authors, and I realized that I just really don't enjoy them. So for me, I'm gonna go ahead and say it's an ixnay on the two of them. In terms of a series that I think I'm gonna give up on, don't know at this point if I'm going to be finishing the Throne of Glass series. I still have Tower of Dawn and Kingdom of Ash to finish, and I feel like I don't really want any part in it. I think I'm done with it. I'm right now really debating whether or not I want to continue with the Imperium trilogy. Again, there's one book left, but Kingsbane really epically pissed me off. So I'm a little bit nervous about continuing with that one. The last one is going to be very uninterested in that opinion. And this is a David quote that I love. And that one is going to be a very popular opinion that you do not hold with. I don't think it's that controversial, but there are some very popular books that I just do not get on with. Mainly, I do not like Naomi Novik, and I do not like Nora Sovic, I don't know. The Foxhole Court series, it's hot garbage. I hate it so much. One of my most hated, disliked, and ranted about in the comment section video is my review of that series. I strongly dislike that series. I also cannot get behind Uprooted. It was one of my least favorite books that I've ever read in my entire life, and I did finish it, and I will not be reading Spinning Silver. I also do not understand the hype that surrounds Erin Morgenstern. She's just not my kind of writer. Night Circus, I fell asleep reading that book more than I've fallen asleep reading any book in my entire life, and I do not have any interest in reading The Starless Sea. Those are some like really, really popular books that I just don't understand. A lot of people love Uprooted. A lot of people love The Night Circus. I feel like people that love the both of them, like love one, love the other, and I don't like either. And then I just think that the Foxhole Court series is trash. That one's a little bit less popular because it is like indie self-pubbed. I don't know which one, but it's like, you gotta find it on Amazon. It's like $1 kajillion and it's just garbage. They're not for me, but it's a very commonly held opinion that they're good books. And for me, I just don't get it. That has been the Schitt's Creek book tag. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Thank you so much to Aimee, my wonderful co-host for this particular tag, for joining me, for agreeing to go on this Schitt's Creek journey with me. I also have all the questions down there for your convenience if you would like to take this tag and run with it. I really, really hope that you do. So hopefully this tag finds a whole bunch of bookish people that love it just as much as we do so that you guys can enjoy this tag as well. that's going to be it for me right now. If you guys liked this video, be sure to give me a big thumbs up, click subscribe, and I'll see all of you in my next video. Bye guys.